Yeah, something like that.
We're live.
We're going. All right, good. Well, I'd like to welcome everybody to the first webinar that we're doing, the What Evolved Women Want series. I'm really pleased to introduce you to my friend Tina Forsyth. We've known each other for a long time. She has some extraordinary wisdom, life experience, a lot of business experience, and I'm pleased that she was able to make herself and her expertise in the area of taking what it is about your purpose and your passion and making that into something that works for you and makes a difference in the lives of the people that you work with. So, Tina, thanks very much for being on this call with me, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Yes, I'm excited. Happy to be here.
Good. Well, let's just maybe let everybody know a little bit about your background, how we first met, and what your first interest.
Are you there? Or did we lose you, Graham? Oh, you're there. Okay, good. You were saying how we first met?
Yeah.
A bit about my background?
It's been a while.
I don't know. It's one of these things where I feel like, I remember you and I talking about this even I think a few weeks ago. It's like I don't remember exactly when we met. I know it would have probably been the 10-ish year ago mark, which sounds funny in some ways. But given we were doing some, real estate and such together, I think was the first official connection through some other contacts, through some people we both know. But over the past, I remember distinctly you and I having a conversation. It was probably about 2 years ago now. I was thinking about that earlier today. It could be almost like 2 years ago to the day, where whenever we would connect on some other things, we'd end up talking about other stuff and talking about the fact that we're in the same industry and some of the same people we know and different things that are going on. And for me, it was just always, I classify you, Graham, in one of those categories where it's like every time I talk to you, I get some kind of knock over the head of some kind. That's usually what I need to hear, whether I want to hear it or not in the moment. And there's only 2 other people in my life that I put in that category besides you. So yeah, I mean, I think that's how we initially connected, and it was just kind of organically got to know each other a bit over time in that regard.
And how did you get involved in putting together the 2 businesses that you have? What's your, I don't even know if I've ever asked you what your professional background was before doing that and how you made the transition from working for someone else to working for yourself.
Yeah, I actually started my business back in 1999. And before then, I have a business degree. I was working in Calgary at the time when I worked in downtown Calgary. I worked in accounts payable. I worked as an executive assistant. I worked as a marketing coordinator. I did a bunch of work that was kind of that behind the scenes type stuff. I also worked as a recruiter for a while with a company in Calgary. And the way that I got started with my business was actually a friend of mine who back in 1999 started his own company. He started a magazine, actually, for 20-somethings. I was a 20-something at that point, not anymore. But he gave me the opportunity to come and to collaborate with what he was doing and to work with his company. And that started for me this first piece of like working from home, being a contractor, that whole world. I came across the coaching industry at about that time, around 1999 or 2000, and really fell in love with the idea of coaching and fell in love with the idea of being able to help people create what they want in their lives and really being supported, being able to be paid for that was just this like, blow my brain up kind of idea. After going through my coach training and everything, and like long story short-ish, I won't go on too long with this, but I went through my coach training. I hung my shingle out as a coach. I shared this the other day on a call. I kind of got a good kick out of this. I found my original coach business card from years ago. This will crack you up, Graham. I don't know if I've showed you this before. Passion Works.
Cool.
That was the name of my business at the time because, quite honestly, I had no idea what my passion was, and I didn't know how to define it. And I kind of put myself out there as like this life. I think it says life and small business coach on there. So I was kind of putting myself out there as an everything kind of coach. What I very quickly learned was I had no idea how to build my business, right. So I didn't really have any clients. And I also had an opportunity around that time come up to work with and Andrea Lee, of course, you and I know quite
Right.
well, Graham, and some others of you may know of Andrea as well. She's a real key player in the coaching industry at large, and has played. She's been she's been around a long time, probably as long as anyone in the coaching world in general, the business and life coaching world. And Andrea and I, at that time, she lived in Calgary as well. We had an opportunity. She was working with Coachville, a large coach training organization run and founded by Thomas Leonard. Andrea was the general manager, and she reached out to me one day just saying, hey, we need a little bit of help on the back end with this. We have some, I think initially my role was event manager. At that point in time, they would do 1 or 2 events per weekend throughout North America, sometimes in Europe, and they needed somebody to manage all of these events. So my role initially with them was to manage the events, and I hopped into that thinking, oh, I'll do this a little bit over here while I build my coaching business. And it very quickly flipped around for me because I got on the back end of this large coach training organization, about 40,000 members, which at that point in time was like a huge amount. I mean, it still is, but was a huge amount, multi-million-dollar business. And I very quickly kind of became the right hand to the general manager. I fell in love with what it takes to run the back end of a business, and in particular, an online business or a virtual-based business. And from there, when I quit working there, unfortunately, Thomas Leonard passed away in 2002, which shifted some things in the business. I went from that to working with other clients, other high-end, really successful business and life coaches, working with them as an online business manager and managing all the day-to-day behind the scenes in their business. And so I did that work for a number of years, probably. I think I started that about 2000, it would have been about 2003 that I started working in that capacity with clients. And then it's actually 5 years ago now, almost to the day, where I started and launched a training arm of my company. And I shifted my company from being a one-on-one service business where it was me doing the work for my clients and plugged into their business, running everything behind the scenes day to day. I started a training organization where I train and certify people to become online business managers, for them to do what I had already done for a number of years at that point, because I could see the opportunity for them. I could see the number of people who wanted to hire them, and really it's almost like this following a trail of breadcrumbs thing is what I feel like happens for me, because from there as well too, that's the first business that I have and continue to run at this stage as well. And a few years ago, we also opened another business, another training company called Automate Your Growth, which is really focusing on helping entrepreneurs in general find the right business model, get the right systems and team, get their business set up properly so that it can run without them as well.
So you have seen literally tens of thousands of people that are doing something to affect a change in people's lives. You've seen what they're up to. You've seen what they're doing with their businesses. What would you say is the most common theme among people who want to do something, healers, coaches, trainers, authors, all those types of people who are looking to do something in an area of consciousness, that want to make a difference, that want to make that not just a part of their passion, but a business that provides them income that they can either bring into their family, or if they're the one who looks after it by themselves, have something stable that is guaranteed to be there for their family. What would you say is the main difference between the people who do that really well, and whatever their habits or is involved in their business, and the people that struggle to put that together? Really, really talented, gifted people. We've both seen a lot of struggle to make that work as a business. What's the main difference that you've seen between those two types of individuals?
I think one of the first things I've really come to see is that people those who accept the fact that it's going to take some work and they are willing to do the work it almost sounds easy to say this, right? But they're the ones who are going to be they're much more likely to be successful. And what I mean by that is, and this is the heart of the purpose paradox, the manifesto that I just released recently, because I've seen this over the years, and it's sort of almost like this there's a real big misconception out there. And in particular, when we're talking about the transformation industry or the healing industry, where there's coaches, healers, trainers, authors, any of us, and I include myself in that category, where we really want to serve other people and we really want to make a difference in their lives. We really want to help them create what they want. We want to help them have an impact. We want to have an impact on their lives. When anyone who's in that kind of purpose-driven business, there comes alongside that this misconception that's been very real in our industry for a number of years, that everything's supposed to be easy and everything's supposed to be almost like just fall in your lap. You know, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. Just focus on what you want and it'll come to you. There's law of attraction stuff. You know, when you know what you're passionate about, then you'll never feel like you're working. There's all kinds of things out there, all kinds of, I guess, kind of like phrases or comments that we've all heard that really, I believe, have done a disservice in a lot of ways to our industry. And in particular, when I see people who fall into the trap of thinking it's supposed to be easy, there's a couple of things that happen with that. A, they aren't going to do the work. They're going to, if something feels hard or something comes up or it starts to feel hard or it starts to feel scary, then they don't want to do, then they're going to pull back and go, whoa, 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 this isn't supposed to be hard. I'm probably, what am I missing? I'm doing something wrong, or, you know, I need to pull back. This isn't the right thing to do at this time, etc. That can happen. Or people will go out and continually search for that easy way. Right. That magic pill, you know, not to be cheesy about it per se, but there is an element of where I know I've seen people, I've been here myself, looking for that magic pill, like it's got to be out there somewhere kind of thing that's going to make everything just fall into place and everything's going to be smooth sailing from that point forward. You jump from like coach to coach or program to program or this or that or whatever it is, continually searching for this thing. You know, what it takes to actually build a business is not that hard. There's nuances that vary from person to person, and there's different, you know, you're going to have a different business model than what I have in some cases. There's things that are different, but what it takes to actually build a business is not that different. It's not that hard. It's not that complex, I should say. But it's the willingness to actually do the work. Yeah. You know, did you see that? I don't know if I shared that with you, Graham, but there was the commencement speech that Shonda Rhimes did for Dartmouth, yeah, just on Sunday, so just a couple of days ago, that I came across this somehow. I'm not quite sure how, but honestly, you guys need to go read that thing. Like, I was almost like standing up going, I watched it and I read the transcript, and it's pretty rare that anything holds my attention for that long. But there was moments where I stood up and went like, woohoo! You know, because she was basically saying that, you know, passion's not going to do it. You need to do the work. Like, put in the hard work. And then, of course, she was talking about working moms and everything, too, so that really hit. I'll
interrupt you just for a point on here, yeah, because we're primarily talking to women today, and I've talked with you individually about this, that I observed in my marriage, what I think has become a mythology that's come from the feminist movement, that somehow, in some magic way, women can do it all and be amazing at it all at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I observed that for 20 years in the relationship that I had with my ex-wife, where she would work full-time, plus she was doing real estate full-time, plus we had 4 kids full-time, and she attempted to do all of those things at 100%, and she would keep burning out. She would keep getting sick, and I would, you know, I'd support her in the best way that I could, and my advice would be, you can have it all, you just can't have it all at the same time. You can't have it all right now. We can work on a piece at a time, but like, women have this ability to dig really, really deep. They can go to wells of energy for a long, long time, and so it can sometimes be weeks, months, maybe even years before it wipes them out, health-wise or energy-wise. Or they get to the end of whatever that source is that they draw on, and then they collapse with all these people that they've designed to rely on them. And I see women do that personally. I see women do it professionally. I see women do it with their friends, with their children, with their extended family. So there's something in the nature of women that's more giving and less selfish than men. And men have pretty good boundaries in just sort of being selfish for themselves that way. whereas women tend to dig really, really deep. And when I see them get into particularly a helping or a coaching profession, they give and they give and they give and they give in the service of their gifts, and spend less time on the discipline of the business and making it work for them and making it financially viable for them. And so there's a lot of people that have so much that they have to offer, but because they haven't structured it as a business and they're doing it as a business, they struggle financially. And we've seen a lot of that.
Yeah, and there's also this piece of, so I mean, like, number one is accept the fact that it's going to take some work. Like, there's other people out there, obviously, who talk about this, and don't get me wrong, it's not that there's not an element of truth to the fact of do what you love, find what you're passionate about, all of those things. It's kind of like that's step number one, but it's only the first step. And in some cases, it's not even a necessary step.
If you're doing, what I say to people is, if you're doing what you love, the hard work feels less like hard work because you're willing to commit to it. You do more. If you're passionate about it, then you're willing to really sink yourself into doing what it takes. But anytime you're doing something for the first time, you haven't done it before, you're going to come up against all kinds of challenges that you haven't experienced before. Yeah. And I would say probably the best known person who does what they love and talks about this kind of concept of making a difference and being conscious is Oprah. And in the last few years, she transitioned from what she knew well and did well, which was running her show, to running a network. And in the first year of running her network, she lost $1/3 billion. And she talks about that. It's not a whole lot. People like to think that everything she does is magic, but $1/3 billion, I think, was about 1/3 of her personal fortune. And that's a pretty steep learning curve. A number of people that are listening are probably aware that Marianne Williamson just ran for office in politics. And again, first time she's done it. And I had a personal friend who ran for mayor here, looking to make that same type of difference. Calgary's a city of 1 million. She ran for mayor here. And anytime you do something for the first time, just having good intentions, even having lots of people who support you and love you and tell you it's a good idea, business-wise, when you need that result to happen, if you're risking your future, your reputation, your mortgage, your things like that, and then just being passionate about something isn't enough. So it's really understanding the risks in the business and what you're doing.
I want to answer something too, Graham. Sarah had posted here in the chat about your business and childcare. And I just want to share something around that quickly, because I think this really illustrates kind of this other piece that I think is so important is, when we want to be in business for ourselves, when we want to create our own livelihood, whether it's just you doing some work or you maybe want to build an empire, you want to build something that's bigger than just you, part of what we also need to be really purposeful with is knowing that we're building the right business for who we are and what we want to create. That involves, it's kind of like looking at, it really needs to start with, what do I want in my life? Which might sound like an almost super simple question in some ways, but it's essential if you're going to be in business to be aware of this, because what you want is going to determine and affect the other things in your life. What you want should complement the other aspects of your life. And that includes things like if you're a mom and you have young children, or even if you have older children. I mean, my girls are 6 and 8, so they're not teenagers yet, but then I've had people tell me, oh, wait till they're teenagers. They're going to need more of your time, like regardless of age. I know that comes into play. You really want to be aware of, if you know that you want to have a lot of time with your kids and you want to have flexibility and you want to be able to go to school functions and you want to be able to put them first in a way, then now is not the time to build an empire. Right. And you want to be really purposeful too, that the business model, the route that you decide to take for yourself is the right one for you, meaning you're not trying to put on someone else's business model. Just because somebody told you to, you see everybody else doing it, it looks like it might be fun, so-and-so makes it look easy. I mean, I know a lot of people who are very, very successful, in particular in the coaching industry, not at the world at large, but I know a lot of people in the coaching industry who do very well. I know a lot of people who make multiple 7, however many figures and so on, and 6 figures and so on, so by the standards of financial gain. they are quite successful in that way. And I also know that they work their butts off, some of these people. You know, they get some freedom alongside that, but they also work their butts off, you know, so we need to really know and consider what that's going to look like. For me, when it came to childcare, there's kind of a couple of things that were important for me. There can be like a bit of a teeter-totter thing. So when I had my girls, I was already working as an online business manager. That's when I was working with my clients one-on-one. My daughter was born in 2006. My second daughter was born in 2008. And at the beginning, they were home with me all the time.
Yeah.
And then I started with maybe a couple of mornings a week where I got some help for them. And then I went to all mornings in the week. And then they went into preschool. You know, and then, so they were still with me in the afternoon, so maybe a couple of afternoons. There was almost like this teeter-totter thing that happened for me over time. I believe that it's pretty darn hard, if not impossible, to actually work from home with your kids, because one will always suffer for the other.
Right.
Believe me, been there, done that myself, and still do from time to time, where it's like, I'm trying to get something done, and my girls are home with me, and oh, Mom, can you come do this? Oh, no, I got to just get this done. You know, or vice versa, if your children really need you, and yet your client needs something too. I really encourage, as much as it makes sense, that teeter-totter kind of approach over time, that you find the business model that allows you the flexibility you need, in particular if you're a mom, and just do it bit by bit. You know, start with a couple of mornings a week, maybe expand from there, The secondary piece, too, that was really helpful for me, a coach of mine told me this 5 years ago, when I was looking to shift my business model and really focus on building my training company, on building that side of my business, when I made that shift 5 years ago, is that I had a coach tell me, so at that point I knew that it was going to require some travel. My girls were 18 months and 3 years, so like 1.5 years and 3.5 years. And I knew that what I wanted to do moving forward was going to mean some travel. It was going to mean investing at another level in my business. It was going to mean a number of things for me at that time. And I remember saying to my coach at that time, like, how the heck can I do this? My girls are so young. Like, who am I to go off and do these things and create these things for my business? You know, like the guilt and the who am I, and I can't do that, and no, you know, responsible mom would, you know, leave her child when she's 18 months. I wasn't leaving her alone. She was with her dad or her grandparents. But there was just that guilt thing that came up. And I remember this coach saying to me that this was also in that Shonda Rhimes commencement speech, which I really love seeing there too, is that this is me showing my girls that I can create what I want to create. You know, that women can create what we want out of our lives, that we can take control of not only our lives, but our livelihood in various ways. And that also, too, that mommy would go away and come home, which was an interesting piece of this to me at the time. But it's really, so for me, it's like, okay, I get that. There's moments I'll travel. There's moments I need to focus on this. For this webinar today, usually the girls are home with me. I took them to the day home, you know, to a babysitter's, and my oldest is like, oh, I don't want to go there. You know, and there's a part of me that's like, oh, you know, who am I to like pick talking to you guys over hanging out with my girls? But it's really something important to consider, is that whatever it is in life, be it children or otherwise, that we're making sure that we're really finding the business and choosing the business model that's going to match with that.
Right.
And at the same time, that we're also okay to put ourselves first, because I don't think you can put your business first until you put yourself first in your life.
Yeah, and there's a misconception, well, something that's happened culturally for us that's very different than it was for our parents, in particular our grandparents, is that we live very individual lives. We used to do things in a way that was very much community-based, particularly among the women. And so children from a number of different families, whether they're related or not, depending on what the situation was, were all looked after in certain types of what we now would call daycare, but at that time was just considered the norm, because everyone was working. Men were doing a certain type of work that required, you know, bigger muscles. Women were doing more of the things around the house, and we had divisions of labor. But there wasn't this thing where it was every individual for themselves, and that there were many, many fewer single moms attempting to do it all. And there's probably a fair number of those that are on the call. But even if you're not a single mother, in today's culture, we're still very individualistic. Men have what they're doing. Women have what they're doing. Both are oftentimes just as important as the other. Oftentimes in our culture, it's the women's job who's beginning to earn more, or a company that she's running, and a man trying to figure out what his role is. So the idea that because you're not with your children all the time, that you're not as good a mother or considerate a mother is a pretty new concept, because we have always, from the dawn of time for people, been a culture where we share the responsibilities of raising young. And we're different that way. If you look anthropologically at other animals, we're very different in the way that we share that. So it's okay to look at that and find a solution. And what I say to moms, what I say to parents is, it's not your job to be there every moment for your child. We have no problem sending them to school. That's natural for us to think that the school can spend most of the day teaching them. There's some people that have gotten the sense that I should feel guilty up until the age of, particularly 3 years old, if I'm not the one that's the caregiver. But sometimes there's other people that just have different talents and different gifts and different passions to make that happen, and they're great. So I have 4 kids, and we've had probably 5 different nannies at different times for different reasons. Mm-hmm. And my ex-wife and I, for quite a long time, both of us worked from home, and yet we still needed someone there during the time that we were working to look after the kids. Sometimes we would trade off. So it's finding a solution that works for you. And one of the things that I think would be great for you to speak to, and I'll start the conversation a bit by talking about having a solid foundation to move into really full-time, like building something around your gift. Maybe it's a business, maybe it's just something that you're doing as a Facebook passion, putting your time and energy into that. And I know many stay-at-home moms who do that. They haven't turned it into a business, but there's something they really want to share. They find lots of things that are great to communicate, or they write. But if you're leaving a job or you're transitioning into your business, what are the types of things that you've seen that are successful as a foundation to take that risk to leave a job, or to invest the money, or to go begin taking the courses to become trained in some new career, or to become a coach, or to, there's a fairly significant shift when you move from the safety and security of an employer to either letting that go or investing into a business. If a friend came to you and said, like, Tina, this is what I'm thinking of doing. I want to start my own home business, online coaching business, some other type of business. What would you want to see in their portfolio of support, family, finances? What's kind of that starting package, that file that you'd want to see them beginning with?
I think it is that. I like when you say that portfolio of support, because it is really important to think through some of this stuff. And we need to know financially, for example, there will always be a risk when you leave something and start something else, whether it's leaving a job to start a new business, whether it's transitioning your business from one business model to the next level of growth in your company, etc. There's always a level of risk whenever there is a transition to be made. And I think it's really important to, first and foremost, make smarter financial decisions. Know what it's going to cost for you to actually not only create the business that you want to create, but sustain yourself for that. I call that the gap, where you're getting started to where you want to be making the money you want to make. Now, there's no guarantees in this gig. There's no guarantees in business. There's no guarantees in life. There's ways to be smart and purposeful and strategic, obviously, around what we're doing. But I've seen people, some of the bigger mistakes I see people make financially is where they just throw everything in. They have no idea what they're going to do. They don't know if they have a business model that's going to work or not. And they just jump in, and then it's like sink or swim time. And I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of the sink or swim method of starting a business. I'm not necessarily.
Burn the bridge behind you.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, in some cases and for some people that really works. I get what that is, and there's people who will teach that, and I understand kind of some of the thinking and the reasoning behind that. Because at a certain point, you do need to burn a bridge behind you. Like at a certain point, I mean, I had to, when I transitioned from being an online business manager to a training company, there was a point where I had to let go of my last 2 OBM clients. And that was a scary moment. It was like, eek, all right, we're done, and now I'm over here. And now this has to work, kind of thing. I have no choice for it to work, which is part of what compelled me to put in the work that I needed to put in. But you need to make sure that you're being purposeful with what it's going to take. Like, here's what I need to start this business. Here's what I need to invest in, whether it's team or training or, you know, a coach or who knows what that is, depending on the type of business you want. You also want to make sure that you have a business model that is actually viable. The first stage of business growth is, I call that stage one, is essentially proving your business model. Meaning you could have the best idea in the world. You might think it's a great idea, but until people are paying you consistently for it, more than once or twice kind of thing, it's not actually a proven business model yet. And so you want to make sure that if you can, model what somebody else is doing. Again, just an example of that, when we teach people to be online business managers, they're modeling what I did to be successful in that role, and they're modeling what many others have done now in our community there. So there's the piece of modeling what other people have done to be successful. It's also making sure, though, that that's going to match, as we talked about already too, who you are and what you want for your life. You know, certain business models may not match in that regard. It needs to match the investment. It needs to match the time and energy. And I think too that there's an expectation factor that we also want to be aware of. There's another misconception out there that success is supposed to happen overnight, and that we're supposed to take a quantum leap. And if you're not taking a quantum leap, then maybe something's wrong with you, or you're missing something, or you're not doing enough. And not to say that you can't make great strides and make great leaps forward in a business. Absolutely you can. At the same time, though, when you're just getting started, there's a little bit of like, okay, let's be purposeful here. Here's my goals for the next 6 months. Here's my goals for the next year. And you absolutely need to be crystal clear on how much money you need to make. Is another side too. I will ask when I'm working with clients or when I'm talking to people throughout some of our programs and trainings, one of the first questions I will always ask somebody is, okay, how much money do you want and need to make right now in your business? And you know, I'd like to say I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised, because I get why this happens. But quite often people can't answer that question. Yeah. Not to a specific dollar amount. They're like, oh, I want to make, I want to make 6 figures. Okay, why? Like, why do you need to make 6 figures? I don't know. That seems like a good number. That's not going to work. You need to actually know these numbers down to the penny, down to the dollar. Maybe not to the penny. We don't have pennies anymore in Canada. But you need to know the specific number of what it is you want to make financially and what's going to support you through that startup time as you continue to grow, et cetera, with that.
Yeah, and people need to understand it. It really doesn't matter what kind of business you're starting. If it's the first time you started a business, if it's the first time you started this business, you're probably looking at a 3-year time frame. And your first year, I mean, there are people who make a net profit that pays them the living wage that they need in their first year. But I would suggest most of those people have laid a lot of groundwork. They have a lot of network. They have a lot of things that are in place that allow them to do that as they transition. And for people that are visionaries, and that's definitely the category that I fall under. For those of you who came to this from Tina's invitation, What Evolved Women Want is the Facebook page that I have, and that's not my business. That's part of my passion. It's part of a calling that I have to share a message that may or may not one day turn into some type of income, some type of income coming from a book or training that I do. But that's where the vision comes, and I didn't know if it would resonate beyond just the small circle of women that I was speaking to until I began sharing that message. And that was 2 years ago. It's almost 2 years ago to about today when I began talking about it. And then it was in the summer that I put up a Facebook page. And anyone who's ever put up a Facebook page knows there's no telling which ones are going to catch. You don't know. And I run a lot of those Facebook pages for clients we've already identified that they have something that the public is connecting to. But there are ways to find out if what you're doing is going to resonate. And we live in a time that allows people to do this better than any other, to test what you're doing before you do it. So if you have a concept, if you have a vision, if you have a message that you want to share, it's pretty easy these days to publish, to self-publish, to get that book out, to see if if people respond to it, to put up a Facebook page, to see if people really gravitate and respond to your message, or if you're going to be drowned out in the millions of voices of other people who also have something to share. Now, I firmly believe everyone has something that a million people can benefit from. I truly believe that everyone has that one special thing inside them that a million people can benefit from. But it may be that one idea that comes out of your head one time. Or it may be something that you share on a platform that becomes a business for you. I still believe it's up to us to manifest that gift that's inside of us, but we never know if it's going to turn into an actual business, if it's going to turn into a platform or a book or that we're doing something from. But each one of us, I believe, is born with this unique insight that everyone can, maybe it's just something that's motivational, that you hear once, that good little quote that comes across on a meme in Facebook, and it makes that little bit of difference in your day. And people love it, and they forward it, and they share it. So do that and make that happen. But we have lots of ways to test things out before you risk everything. And if you go ahead.
I was going to say, the other thing you remind me of too, Graham, is like not everything has to be a business.
No.
I mean, I love that you brought up the What Evolved Women Want page, because it's like, are there things there that could be turned into revenue streams in some way, shape, or form? Sure. You know, I know that's part of what you're exploring and so on. But it's like, you didn't know that, or you would have known that until you started the page and started the conversation with people. And sometimes I think there's also this space to be okay to just play and connect and explore and see what something might be, especially if you're in a place where you have no idea what kind of business you would want to start or what that would be for you yet. I mean, it's okay. There's no race. There's no mad rush in all of this. And I think, too, that it's also worth noting that, Sarah, you're giving me lots of great questions here. I love it. Because Sarah posted in here again, how do you know about how to invest and how much capital and what it's going to take? The fastest path to cash in any kind of business is a one-on-one service of some kind. So if you are, and this may not be the fit for everybody, but if you are someone who you may want to work as a web designer, a virtual assistant, an online business manager, a coach, a social media specialist, you know, there's all kinds of things that could fit into this category. You could be a bookkeeper. You might be a massage therapist. That's not online, but no way to do that online yet at this stage in the game. But regardless of what it is that you want to do, there's not a lot of money involved for you to go out and start a service-based business. So when we're talking about upfront investments and all of that kind of stuff, quite often the beginning investment, the beginning capital, if you will, for starting a business is to have enough money that you need to live for your life. So it's not that you have to go out and spend a bunch of money hiring a bunch of people right off the bat or getting a bunch of systems or all of those kinds of things. The only thing you need to do in the beginning is learn how to get clients with what it is you're offering. That's the key focus.
Let's talk about this and get into some actual details, because I know people that are on the other side of this, if they haven't started or if they're struggling with that, that's the biggest question that people come to me with. So, like, I'm a visionary, and I was born with an extraordinary gift, and I knew that from the time I was about 13. Like, I had this amazing thing inside me, and I could do things with it, and I could do things for people that could change their lives in a conversation. And so from a very early time, I had this thing that I could do that was high value, but transitioning that into an actual business was the question. So initially, what I thought I was going to do was to be a counselor. That's what made the most sense to me, and I went to university for that. And then it turned out, as I was working my way through university, that because I understood human behavior so well, marketing was an area that, as I was working for other people's business, and I just give them ideas and suggestions, like small business owners that I worked for, I could take what they're doing and turn something that was just about ground into bankruptcy into 7-8 figure businesses. So I'm like, okay, I guess this is what I'm supposed to be doing with my gift. And when I finally transitioned back into working with people again, I didn't even know coaching existed. I knew counseling, I knew consulting, I knew those two words. That question of how do I, and I think Sarah's asking this, how do I begin? How do I start? What do I invest? The idea to jump right in with both feet when starting to do something that you're passionate about carries an enormous amount of risk. And so I can tell you who it works for in the people that I've seen. And I wrote a little earlier, never risk more than you can afford to lose. That's in life, that's in business, that's in relationships, it's in whatever you're doing. It's in how fast you're driving. It's in texting while you're driving. Never risk more than you can afford to lose. And the people that I've seen that, for example, get up on stage and they're selling a program, and they talk about their story about how they risked it all and became, quote-unquote, overnight seven-figure successes. They oftentimes didn't have, for example, what you and I have, which is a responsibility to our children to make sure that there's stability. So energetically, they had the ability to literally risk it all, because their worst case scenario was if they lost everything, they could go sleep on a friend's couch or their parents' couch and start all over again, whether that's just happened to be their circumstances later in life or they were younger. So there's different forms, different times and places that we can risk that. If you're a parent, if you're the one who's responsible for your child's well-being, for making sure that there's stability in their life, it's a much different type of risk that you can take. And so you need to be doing something that either has stability while you're starting something else, or you're risking an amount of money that you have. One of the questions I saw is, do you go get a bank loan? Banks aren't going to give you money to risk that you don't have to risk yourself. It's like they're basically going to say, what's your collateral? And you're like, well, I don't have money, that's why I'm coming to you. And they'd say, no thanks, we're not interested in taking that on. So you're initially risking your own assets. And you have to believe the most in yourself in what you're doing to make that happen.
I think too that, how can you invest your business? Having a job or a part-time job is part of the way to invest in your business.
Absolutely.
In the beginning. There's a little bit of, I don't want to say a movement, but I've certainly I know of people who've recommended that and talked about that over the years, and I saw a little bit of conversation about it just the other day on Facebook again too, where it's like having a job doesn't have to be all or nothing. It could be that, and if you really frame it that way, it's like, here's what that teeter-totter thing again. I'm working on building something, so in the meantime I'm going to have a job, then maybe I'll cut back to part-time, and then I'll be ready to officially finish that one thing and shift into the next thing with that. And bang on with it. With bank loan, if you're not creating something that doesn't have assets, like tangible assets, intellectual property from a bank perspective is not going to be enough to get a loan. If you're not building something with a building and widgets and all of that kind of stuff, it's pretty. I don't know. I haven't looked into it that much personally, but it's pretty difficult to be able to get a loan in that regard. You need to fund yourself with this, either through a job or through savings or through picking a business model that's going to allow you to get paid quickly. I'll suggest
a piece of strategy for people that want to get started, because you have to look at this long term. If this is really what you want to do with your life, then think about it as your life. Don't think about it as the next year or 2 years or even 5 years. If this is what you're born to do, plan that as your life. And that means then if strategically you choose to go work for a company that's going to give you the type of training in business, in management, that's going to be an asset to you when you go out on your own, that's going to give you access to a network that you're going to have because you're connected to everyone that they're doing. So for you, Tina, that first company that you're working with had a network professionally, plus 40,000 coaches that were connected to it, who, if someone was going to be recommended to doing the things that you were doing for the company, it logically would be you. If you go out on your own and start that as a service, you probably, and I don't know if you did this, but you could go to the company and say, I'm doing this now, I'm transitioning, they have a replacement, but for people who want this for their own company, now this is the service that I'm providing for individuals, or training that I'm doing. That network is critical. If no one knows who you are, if you do not have relationships with other people who have built a massive number of relationships, you're starting with nothing other than just go ringing your neighbor's doorbell and ask if they're interested, or picking up the yellow pages, or going to your friends. Network marketers have the same type of challenge. They very quickly run out of connections, and most people don't do well. But I see a question that's down here a little further. What about starting a Facebook page? And I suggested earlier, I think that's a brilliant way to determine if you have that really unique value that pops. Because the Facebook page that I have at this point that has 40,000 people, I've never paid for a like, I've never paid for reach, I've never paid to have people come and look at that or like the page. There's not fictitious people there that like it. It's a very organic and viral message where I started with just the people that were closest to me, my friends. And like if you go and look at my personal page, there's about 800, 900 people that follow me. I have no idea who they are. You know, they come onto my page, probably finding out about me from What Evolved Women Want, and I'm significant enough in their life with that message that I share that they want to at least hear from me on Facebook on a regular way. And that's something that you can build up over time. Like I said, that page for me has been taking 2 years to build, and that's the message that said to me, people want to know more. They want more. And I ask. I literally, before we did this call, I asked what people wanted to know, and then I went to my network and I said, Tina, here's one of the things that people want to know about. Would you be willing to come on and talk about your experience? Because I think you're an expert and have authority on that topic. And if I do a good job sharing that, then people will trust me for the next topic. They'll say, I bet he's going to get another really good guest again. And by the way, our next topic is sex. So.
Woo! All right. Awesome. You know, one other thing I wanted to pop in with too, when we're looking at this idea of not only being in startup, but in particular as your business grows, regardless of what it is you choose to do, is also getting out of the DIY trap, the do-it-all-yourself trap. In the beginning, there's a little bit of necessity to that. You know, I get, obviously, in the beginning, if you're not making a lot of money yet and you're just getting started and you're kind of testing and seeing what works and what doesn't work as far as your business model goes and what people are going to pay you for, all of that, it's not like you're going to have a ton of money to invest in hiring a bunch of people, for example. But I do really recommend, even from day one, that even if you're doing the work, you start to build the mindset that it doesn't have to be you doing the work. Because I will tell you, one of the bigger stuck points that gets happen, there's something I wrote a couple of years ago called the Leaky Bucket Manifesto.
Right.
And what the Leaky Bucket Manifesto is when you, so in the first stage of business, when you're just looking to make this thing work, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I can't wait till this thing works. After that, everything will be smooth sailing and sunshine and roses. What the leaky bucket is, the leaky bucket moment, is where you get to that stage of like, okay, I'm making money. People want to buy what I have to offer. I thought it would be all awesome, but now behind the scenes, everything's a mess. Everything's falling apart. Everything's on my plate. I'm working 24/7. I never see my kids. I thought I'd have more freedom. Now I have less. You know, clients are starting to get mad, et cetera, et cetera. There's a stage in business growth where if you're not purposeful with this, that you could really get yourself into a point going, what the heck did I get myself into? You know, not to scare you, but to scare you a little bit when I say this, right? Because this can be an extraordinarily painful experience for entrepreneurs. You may be making money. It could be going out the door just as quick again if you're not careful.
Yeah.
You could be making money but not have the right people around you, or not have a team around you, or not know what it takes to make sure that everything's getting delivered in the way that it should, and that it's not all on your plate and all of that too. That's the other, and that's my other passion in the work that I do, is really helping entrepreneurs get that structure set up in their business. You know, what systems do you need? What people do you need to hire and when? And how can you build a business that will actually allow you the freedom to really operate from your passion, to really operate from your purpose? Because I'm betting, unless if you want to be a web designer, for example, you probably don't want to be messing around in like WordPress or trying to figure things out all day. You know, unless you want to be a bookkeeper and that's your job and that's your work, that's your business, you don't want to be messing around with trying to figure out how to use QuickBooks or something. You know, unless if those are the things that are your brilliance and that are your passion, you don't want to be messing around with those things. And every time you allow yourself to get bogged down into a piece of your business that is not based on your brilliance, you are withholding your purpose. You're withholding the reason that you're here from the people that need you. I had a conversation, and this continues at every level of growth. I had a conversation with my team yesterday, 2 lovely women on my team, of course, Tiffany, who's we call her the VP of everything at this stage. She's been my business manager for years now. We've worked together 4.5 years now and known each other longer. So she runs my companies, right? Tiffany and we had a moment yesterday where she basically said, and I think her words almost to the point were, Tina, quit sticking your nose in where it doesn't need to be so I can just get some stuff rolling here. Because basically, I was kind of sticking my nose into places in the business that didn't need me anymore. You know, that really I shouldn't be sticking my nose into. And I had another conversation with a lady later on that day who's coming on as a salesperson for our company. And she basically said the exact same thing to me. She's like, you got to quit doing this, this, and that. You're needed over here. Stop messing around over here. And it was this moment of like, oh my gosh, you're right. You know, like there's a continual at every stage of growth in the business where we need to be really aware of where does a business need me and my brilliance at this moment to serve my clients, to move forward, to expand this reach, and what can I let go of? What can I let go of?
And that is one of the big secrets in doing it. I mean, the first thing, you can't be under leveraged coming in. You can't be scared and having everything to work in order for you to eat and pay for where you live. Your energy when you do that will be all off. People won't respond to it. So you need to come in with what you can risk. And you're risking everything. You have no idea if that business is going to go or not. So you can do it for free by starting things, we're talking coaching, doing it for free, sharing your message on Facebook, seeing if there's resonance before you actually start and make transitions, and then doing it intelligently, not jumping in all at once. But once you're ready to commit, then you go full in, you give it everything you've got to give it every chance of working if possible, and if it doesn't, then you got to figure out what you're doing. You go back to a job again, you do something. Sometimes it's hard on the ego, and I've had to do that more than once in my career and in what I'm doing. And then the next piece is, as you begin to build momentum, you need to begin delegating the things that aren't your passion, that aren't necessarily where your gift shows up the most. Yeah. Maybe that starts with childcare. That might be the first one that you're doing. Maybe the next piece is bookkeeping. Maybe the next piece is a virtual assistant. And for the people that are asking, how do you know? Until you've done it and become the expert, you don't. You're not going to be the expert at knowing and making that choice. So you turn to someone who's a mentor. If you're going into anything for the first time and you don't have someone to mentor you through it, the chances that you're going to fail probably go up by a factor of 20. So having someone that can mentor you through is critical. Now you can either do that and maybe you have someone in your own life. Some people's dad is their mentor. You know, he's just good with business. Some people have a friend that's done it, an acquaintance, an associate. And so ask them if they'd be willing to, you know, formally or informally mentor you through the process. And if you don't, then you hire someone whose expertise is in mentoring people through those transitions. So when it comes to what do I need to delegate and get off my plate to make my business run better, that's literally what Tina's companies are designed to do. She was immersed in a culture where that was something that people were very, very poor at doing themselves, and realized that she had an expertise at doing that. So the outside-in perspective lets her see all the pieces. Here's the first one. Let's take this off. We'll create more space and energy for you to share your brilliance here. And if it's a question of, hey, is my idea any good? Can I make a business on this? Is my gift monetizable? Is the message that I want to share in the spiritual realm something that I can turn into a business? That's what I literally do with clients, working with them and going, sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. But you want to know that before you quit your job and you risk everything on it. So I say this to my children. A mentor on whatever those big questions on life is critical. Who am I going to marry? What school am I going to go to? What business am I going to start? Is now the right time to have kids? Doing that just on your own, from the inside of your own perspective, is a pretty good recipe for ending up in a space that you don't want to be in. So find a mentor.
I was going to say, or doing that from a space of, let me just look online on social media and see what everybody else is doing, which all that you're going to see for the most part is sunshine and roses, and think that it's all simple and easy, and it doesn't take anything. You know, like, it's
Well, let's relate that. Most of the women that are listening to this have children.
Yeah.
From the time that most of us decided, hey, I think now is about the time to have a kid, to if you particularly remember back from the time they're born to one, and the level of demand and what's going on in that, in the amount of energy that you're putting into it, you have no concept of what's needed. Now we're driven to show up and do everything it takes to make that work. But business is birthing something else as well. So speaking to someone who's been through the process before, having people in your network who can mentor you, without those types of resources and assets, it's very, very difficult to push it and learn by trial and error by yourself. So having some people come in and look at you and test you and push you a bit on your idea. Well, how are you going to do that? And how well are you set up for that? Do you have enough money to look after this? Or are you going to be putting in the 20 hours a week yourself? Okay, where are you going to take the 20 hours a week from, from what you're doing now? Are you going to give up your free time? Are you going to give up your parenting time? Are you going to give up your sleep? Because it's going to come out from somewhere unless you have someone else to do that in the decisions that you're making.
Yeah. And I saw a comment around control freak. Control freak, hello, recovering control freak. I totally get that. I think a lot of us, a lot of women, I mean men too, but I think a lot of women we may tend to hold on to things much longer than we need to, and this can absolutely show up in business where it's like, I have to do it, I'm the only one who knows how to do it, nobody can do it as well as me, it's just easier if I do it myself. You really want to be aware of some of those things too in your mind, because usually they're not true and all they're going to do is hold you back in the end. There's a very purposeful way to find the right people to help you out at the right time, and to give them the stuff they need to do for you in a way that's really going to serve you. But at the same time, the first step is you need to be able to be willing to let go of things, and that's a hard part. That's a hard thing to do, believe me. Absolutely, I get that.
It is, and the difference that it makes. I mean, I'll tell a couple of stories that are among the more magical of people that I've worked with. So when I work with a client, I don't create their gift. I simply recognize the value that it has and then help them build a plan around how to take that and share it with others. And people can go to my website. It's effectivethicalmarketing.com, and they talk about them right on the front page. Lisa Sasovich was a stay-at-home mom. She was staying at home while her husband was going through med school. And she knew there was something that she had inside her, and I knew there was something really special about her as well, but we couldn't quite put our finger on it yet. So I invited her into a 6-figure mastermind group that I was running, which she felt very embarrassed, shy about, because everyone there was making money, and she was just kind of listening along. And I said, Lisa, I said, trust me, you belong in this group. And I said, I have no doubt that one day you'll be doing better than everyone in this group combined. And when we finally hit on exactly what that piece was, she wrote her manifesto, she wrote her book, her manual. It was another 2 years before I insisted that she come up on a stage with me that I was presenting at, and we had a guest cancel at. And from that stage, very quickly, people recognized the value that she had, and now she makes about 8 figures a year doing training. So it's having that recognition and the mentoring and the support, being able to be introduced, being networked around. Who else? Noah St. John, really, really talented, was literally living in his parents' basement. Life had completely fallen apart around him. He moved back in with his parents, and he had personal work to do. I insisted that I wouldn't work with him until he was done getting over his heartbreak with this woman that he'd been in a relationship and a business, and I said, I can't work with you until we have the energy to make that happen. And finally got through that, got his book done, got that tweaked again. Someone looking from the outside, creating a professional critique of what's going on, and he went on to get a $250,000 book advance for that next book that he wrote, being in that right space. So it's worth investing in those things as you go through and transition and making it happen. That outside perspective is worth it. I think one of my current clients, PETA, is actually on here talking about it and the investing in mentoring. And we feel great being the professional mentor, opening up that magic in someone's life, making that happen, helping them see a perspective that may be 10 times, sometimes even 100 times bigger than they'd realized was in their potential, or sometimes cautioning them to wait on something that they're doing. But I wanted to
there's some amazing advice to get from a coach or a mentor, is to wait. You know, like it's the thing too. I want to say along the lines of finding a mentor as well. One of the things I recommend is make sure, like, look for somebody who has either been where you want to be, or you know that they've helped others get to where you want to go.
Right.
There's a lot of coaches out there. There's a lot of training programs. There's a lot of workshops. I mean, there's tons of stuff out there. Sometimes it can be a little confusing, and definitely in some cases it can be a little hypey, a little pressury. You know, there's some of that stuff that comes up. So you just want to, in my mind, if you know that you're looking for, and in particular if you're looking to pay someone or to work with somebody in that capacity, be aware ahead of time as much as possible what it is you're going to need from that person. You know, if you're like, I'm just getting started and I need to figure out how to get my first clients, I need to figure out how to nail my business model, I need to figure out those things, that's a certain type of coach. If you're further along and you're like, okay, I'm making some money now, but whoa, things are a mess, and you know, I'm pulling my hair out and I'm working too much, and how do I shift this? That's a different kind of coach. That's a different type of mentor. You just really want to be purposeful and know ahead of time what it is you want from someone, because you don't want to end up working with the wrong person, or working with somebody who is going to coach in their way and their model, but maybe can't connect with who you are and what you want to create. There's amazing coaches out there that do amazing work. I mean, there's absolutely no shortage of people to find and connect with and work with. But I believe it's part of our responsibility ahead of time to know what it is we need from this coach before we go and hire them.
Yeah, because most coaches will tell you what they do. They often won't tell you, and programs even that you can purchase. 90+% of everyone that's offering something will leave it up to you to determine if they're right for you. Tina and I are probably rare in the industry where we turn away more people than we accept to work with, because we know who we're best suited to work with, and we know there's a massive limitation on what we can do personally and with a group. But I mean, Tina, when we first started talking, you had something new that you were working on. It was around this whole concept about purpose and how to match that together with passion and put it together in a business. So I want to make sure that people who are listening know where they can go to get that, which is www.mypurposeparadox.com. And they can download the short book. You call it a manifesto there. It's got really, really good information in it. I've read every single word of that. If people want to know more about me, most people have heard about me from What Evolved Women Want. I do something professionally with my day job, and that's effective ethical marketing, where I work with people on helping them really figure out if they're able to monetize that passion and gift they're born with, and is that something they can turn into a business. And then there's lots of opportunities to do things with Tina if you have a business that's going, and getting some consultation about what order do I want to do things in, what order do I want the professionals to support me, what do I take off my plate in what order, so I have more time to write, so I have more time to speak, so I have more time to coach, less time that I'm bookkeeping and chasing the financial pieces and putting up web pages and figuring out how to do a webinar. There's a lot of this that you're seeing today that both Tina and I, our assistants, and the other people on our team have put that together for us. Your manifesto was in part edited and put together and formatted by someone that wasn't you. You know, emails that were sent out to promote it, written by copywriters on your team, like lots of these little pieces that are done by someone else, so you can show up and just be the best part of your gift. And that's what both Tina and I are here to support people doing, whether that's being the best parent you can be, whether that's being the best employee you can be. Until we have the energy in our lives to show up with our gift in the most incredible way, whether that gift is part of our business and we're paid for it or not, then we're not doing in life what we feel that urgency, that thing to do that we're born to make happen. So
I love the comment that Denise just put in there. I'm quite surprised by the depth of useful information given here. Yay! We've been useful. But that's to your point too earlier, Graham, where it's like there's something that each of us needs to bring to the world in some way, shape, or form. And I do firmly believe that your purpose, I use the phrase purpose more so than passion. Purpose to me is what is the difference you want to see in the world. When you know what that is and you can hone in on that, then, and if you want to create a business from that, maybe you don't yet, maybe you're going to explore it down the road, but get clear, what is the difference you want to make in the world? Look at, okay, what's the best way for me to bring that out to the world? And when you talk about impacting people, I mean, we have people, because I train and certify and mentor people to be online business managers, I mentor other people in what I call the behind the scenes industry, where there may be virtual assistants or, other types of implementer professionals. These are people that want to have a huge impact through another person's business. I had no BM say to me the other day where she's like, I love the fact that I may work with 1 or 2 clients at a time, but each of those clients is working with, maybe hundreds or thousands of people. And so regardless of what you feel like you want to do, even if it might seem kind of quote unquote small, if it's not like I want to be on a stage in a stadium of thousands of people kind of thing. What was it you said to me one time, Graham? It's like, not everybody's going to be Tony Robbins. Like, this doesn't have to be some gigantor thing. It's, who you are and what you want to do and the difference you want to see in the world gets to be your space to play in.
Yeah, one of the things that I see on a weekly basis, I get to see how many people see a post of mine on What Evolved Women Want. And on a slow week, 250,000 people, 250,000 people see something that I've put out there. It goes through their feeds, it crosses their eyeballs, whether they crosses their eyeball, that sounds like they're cross-eyed looking at it. But it comes across their screen. Whether it resonates and they love it or not, they share, click, comment, that kind of thing. They've seen it. It's had some type of momentary impact in their life. There's pieces that I've put out there that more than 1 million people have seen, just that one piece, because it's been shared that much. So there's so many ways that our gifts can touch people's lives, whether it becomes an actual business or not. Like I said earlier, and I'd like to end with this, is the idea that I believe everyone has something that they're designed to do, to say, to speak, to share, to create, that has the ability to touch 1 million or more people's lives. I absolutely believe that about every single individual. And it's tapping into what that is. That is the reason that we're alive, is to figure out what that is. We've been given a gift, and then it's managing it. It's being responsible for it. Maybe it's a song. Maybe it's support. Maybe it's an idea. Maybe it's a phrase. Maybe it's a business. Maybe it's a better way of engineering clean water. Whatever that is, there's all kinds of different ways that we've been born to show up and support the community of the entire globe now that we live in to make that happen. So, don't get discouraged by the fact that you don't have a 6-figure business that's built around something that's with your purpose. The whole reason that we were put here on Earth was not to make a bunch of money for ourselves on it. We need to do that as a responsible human being, but figure out what that gift is. It feeds us spiritually and energetically when we're doing that, and that energy translates into our relationships, into our parenting, into our sexuality, into the way we show up with our friends. Your purpose is the most important thing to connect to in your life, whether it becomes a business or not. So I want to thank Tina again for making the time available for this. I hope that you found value in it. Again, for the people that are listening to this and can't see the screen, do you have that screen set up with the links? mypurposeparadox.com is where you can download from Tina. Effective Ethical Marketing for anybody who is interested to know what I do professionally. And like I said, the next conversation that we're going to have on the webinar series is going to be all about sex. So that's going to be a lively conversation, and I look forward to you joining us here. So thank you once again, Tina.
All right, thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Take care. Bye now.